Hey, good afternoon, everyone. It's CJ. Hopefully, everyone is having a fantastic Monday so far. It is Monday, April the 11th, 2022. I am back. I am back from a very refreshing week, holiday, vacation, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, so was way on vacation last week. Much needed family time to relax, hit the beach, chill out. And in case you can't tell, I fell asleep in the sun for a minute. I'm starting to peel on my forehead, on my nose. The wife told me several times, hey, put some sunscreen on. But, me being the alpha dog, I'm like, nah, I don't need that sunscreen stuff. It's just going to give you cancer down the road. I might as well just lay in the sun. And lo and behold, maybe one or two many margaritas. And long story short, I fell asleep in the sun. So not too bad, though. I'm just peeling a little bit, just painful a little bit. But I had a great week. I encourage everyone to do so. Get some time away, unplug. Whether it's I was talking to someone today. I was at a doing some quick breakfast slash brunch, and started the conversation with the person who was checking me out. I said, "Hey, listen, I'm like, hey, how was your weekend?" I always try to just small chat with people, right? Just to check in and see how everyone's doing. And she said she looked at me surprisingly that I asked her how her weekend was, and she said, "You know what?" She goes, "My Saturday was awesome, was just incredible." And I said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, tell me about it." She says, "Well, the daughter and I had some weekend things planned. I guess her daughter's into the arts, the performing arts, had a full schedule. Friends that were performing that she had planned on attending to go watch. It wasn't her. So it was like two or three different things that were lined up. They had something else planned that evening, very busy. And the mom was like, listen, I'm tired. Like, do we have to do all these things? I just want to spend some time at home and unplug, quality time with you, enjoy, relax." And she goes, and that's what we did. We wiped our schedule out completely, and we just spent the day in our pajamas, relaxing on home, catching up, watching some movies, making some food. And she goes, I've never felt better. I've never felt better. And that was after one day. So I want to ensure that you take that into some perspectives. Not that I'm ever trying to manage anyone's time here at all, or it be of any type of influence to that. But I think in this day of age of information, of anxiety that's off the charts with 5G, that's pumping out these shortwave signals at high frequency that are all over the place, we have to do those things nowadays. And so again, just encourage everyone to do so. I'm back. I'm refreshed. I feel so much better. I didn't plan on doing this conversation quite yet. I anticipated it a little bit more closer towards the 2024 election cycle, but I was compelled to do so primarily because of the most recent news. And I'm sure everyone here has heard of this, is that apparently at his last big major speech, Trump endorsed Dr. Oz. And I was on social media and I was laughing because people were literally, hey, Texas Tom Paine, what's up? Hey, I didn't want to disrupt your morning, Texas Tom Paine. I knew you had to have your daily dose. V and I are going to be hitting it at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So thank you for jumping on. Mojo Palms is in the house. Mojo, what's up? Good to see you here as well. Just continue the conversation. So I really wasn't prepared or planned at this point to really lead into, because it's something that I knew that we'd have to reach that point at some point, because I don't like talking a whole lot regarding partisan politics. What's up, Green Machine? Green Machine's in the house. Partisan politics, because I think it's pointless. I think it's absolutely pointless to think that after inception, right? Since inception, that there's going to be a Republican or a Democratic solution to the United States. There's not. And again, you can continue believing so. And I think, and again, I want to make sure that I'm speaking in terms of national cycle, national elections, the House, Senate, the president, your local elections. Yes, pay attention to your local elections. But I think it's kind of like a broken cause. Velas is in the house. What's up, Velas? Kind of a broken cause in determining, what that looks like. And when I saw people literally on social media flipping out and freaking out regarding Trump's most recent endorsement, I'm like, should it become of any surprise? And it's not coming from a biased opinion. I'm not biased against against Trump. I understand what he is. He's a celebrity. He is someone who really takes full advantage of leveraging in terms of his ability to influence, his ability to make or break the deals and so forth that he's leading to. So I totally get that, and I'm not discrediting that one bit. What I'm saying is in terms of a potential president in the future as we establish it today, and to see some people literally like losing their minds. Miss you too, Tito. Tito's in the house. Those people are literally like flipping out in regards to what's happening. It's like, if you're just now, because a lot of people are like, this is it. I'm not sure why, but I directly, I can't quote it because I don't have it, but people were stating that literally I've changed my mind in regards to Trump. I've arrived at this conclusion. I'm like, perhaps those people who are still backing or supporting a Trump candidacy at this point, thinking that it's going to be meaningful for some type of change, I think you're stuck in your own belief system. I think you're stuck in the belief system of where I was several years ago, because I was an avid Trump supporter. You guys know this. You guys can go back and listen. Many of the conversations that Vi and I had here on Rogue, I was in Trump's camp. I was hell yes. Let's do this. Let's just disrupt the political class. Let's investigate vaccines and vaccine safety. Let's do all these things that are so great. And as I've shared many times, many things are happening along the way. So I don't, you can come at me with you want. I don't mind whatever comments and stuff that you want to state about me, but just don't come at me from the perspective that you say, CJ is a Democrat, or CJ is a leftist or liberal, because those of you who know me know better than that. I've stated many times that I'm politically homeless. I don't advocate or support any type of national movement towards Republican or Democrat. And because we're getting more of the same if we do that, just more of the same, kicking the can down the road to the proverbial moment of where we are. And since an inception, it's been the Democrats and the Republicans who have literally gave it to the Americans up the ass time and time again. Time and time again, they do the same thing. And I just hope that some people that resonates with them, and some people wake up to that reality of where we are. Now, I understand we're probably in the 11th hour of changing people's minds. So my efforts that I'm putting forth here are not about me, of what I want. It's more about my kids. I have two sons that are younger, and the efforts that I'm putting forth here are for them, for their kids, hopefully, in the future of what I want for our republic. And that is to get people to finally wake up. What's up, Revolutionary Bliss? Thanks. Yeah, it's good to be back from vacation. So the work that I'm doing here is not necessarily regarding my benefit of my life and the direction that I'm going from here from 20, 25 years out. It's more so disrupting the entire political class of what we have here in the United States, to understand that it's not necessarily who's sitting in office that determines things. It's the broken system that's in place. It's the broken system that's in place of two political parties, Republicans and Democrats, who no longer feel that they're held accountable, that they're responsible for those people of our country, Americans. They're more aligned in regards to their own special interests, their own greed, the corporatization of America, the fascist state that's been enabled, where you allow corporations to dictate everything ranging from social to foreign policy. And that's playing out in real time. Look what happened in Florida. Look what happened in Florida, where you had DeSantis said, hey, look, we're not going to teach our first and third graders about sexuality. We're not going to do this. And you had corporations like Disney come after them and say, hey, look, you know what? We're going to advocate against this. We're going to try to change these things, because they're so used to getting what they want. They're so used to lining the pockets of politicians to determine everything ranging from the bills that get passed in the House, the Senate, and then forward that to social policies of everything that we witness today. That's what's happening. So I titled this stream for a very specific reason, whether it could have been titled everything from Trump, the Great Deception, to Trump, the Friend or Foe. And I want to continue this conversation, because we're going to be leading this, 20 into 2024. So this isn't an isolated one-off type conversation, But I continue to hear it time and time again, and this is what's building up. And some very influential people who want to keep this paradigm of the left and right, Republican or Democrat, and instead waking up that we have to disrupt. There are a few out there who are advocating the same thing, that are talking very much along the same lines that I am. People who say the topic in regards to individual freedom and liberty is not about partisan politics. It's not. I completely get that. But then you turn around and you say, but this individual, because of their political party, needs to do this. Or I feel this way about this topic, and this is how we need to realize this, and we move forward. In reality, that's not what happens. That's not what takes shape. And when I was on social media last night, I literally saw some people just, flipping out, and that's why I felt compelled to do this video today. So let's add this to the stream. I'm fairly certain that I have everything set up properly as far as the audio. So here is no other than Donald J. Trump and his endorsement again in the Senate race in Pennsylvania for Dr. Oz.
By the way, I endorsed another person today, Dr. Oz in Pennsylvania. Dr. Oz. Great guy, good man, Harvard educated, tremendous career. And they liked him for a long time. That's like a poll. When you're in television for 18 years, that's like a poll. That means people like you, but he's a great guy.
I signed up to get a Generac home battery and USA solar panels for no cost at install.
Let's just go ahead and close that all together. Let's go back to my main stream, remove that. So Trump equates Dr. Oz and his massive success of being on television. Hey, this guy's successful because he's on television. I got a question for those in the live stream. Is that any anticipation? Is that any type of benchmark? What's up, Hobo Sermon? Hobo Sermon's in the house. I'll follow up regarding your message regarding our karaoke. We'll get that figured out. But to me, that's like so shallow and lack of critical thinking, right? Is that this guy needs to be a senator because he was on television for 15 to 20 years? That means he's liked. And that tells you a lot in regards to Donald J. Trump. Whether he's an egomaniac, whatever the word is. But he does a lot of things based upon popularity. Popularity and how he's perceived in the media, his persona. And that's how he gravitates through things. That's how he does. And he failed to realize a lot of things. So his endorsement of Dr. Oz created a lot of pushback in regards to the conservative cants, the neocons. This article comes from the Daily Beast. Trump world goes into meltdown after Trump endorses Dr. Oz. Oz is antithesis of everything that made Trump the best president of the lifetime, one MAGA luminary said. Late Saturday evening, former President Donald Trump officially endorsed his old TV pal, Dr. Mehmet Oz, for the Republican U.S. Senate primary race in Pennsylvania. In doing so, Trump, while speaking at a rally in North Carolina, ignited fury and ridicule among some of the loudest voices in Trump world. At issue, among other things, and I'm not going to read this whole article. I hate it when, I shouldn't say hate, but I dislike it when people on streams and everything, they read articles per word to people. I think it's kind of pointless. So Oz went out to say and put out a press release, "I'm honored to receive President Trump's full support and endorsement, and I thank him for that." And here's the official Save America Donald Trump issuing the endorsement of Dr. Oz. Getting back to that, many commentators, came forth and they said, well, why is he doing this? Let's not forget some of the background in regards to Dr. Oz, some of the topics that he's touched on. And this one is a issue that really resonates with a lot of people. and that's transgender kids and the age at which they are allowed to make decisions or decide some things. So let's hear directly of what Dr. Oz had to say about this.
Make a decision to let your child live as the other sex, even alter their body. It's an area of intense debate. Today, you'll meet families coping with this astonishing reality. What does it mean to be a boy? What does it mean to be a girl? Those two simple questions are infinitely complex and gut-wrenching for parents of children who are born transgender.
I'm a girl, and I have a penis.
8-year-old Josie was born Joseph. Physically, she's a boy. But from the time she could talk, Josie knew she was a girl. Her sex on the outside didn't match how she felt on the inside. And that's how every transgender child feels. Children like Josie may start showing signs of transgender as early as 2 or 3. This extraordinary condition is not as rare as you might think. It's estimated that 3 million Americans believe they were born the wrong sex. Transgender shakes up all of our ideas about what makes us male or female. Does gender come from our anatomy or from our thoughts and feelings? While science looks for answers, what are parents of transgender children to do?
So here's a continuation of that conversation. This one is a little bit longer. I won't play the entire thing. I think he was hoping that this video may have been scratched from the internet, but it's still out there. And this is the video. I'll try to forward it past the point that I think he had the conversation, but this, jumps into a little bit of his thoughts on this.
He was meant to be a she.
She always knew that she is a girl.
Would you let your child become the opposite sex?
Talk to me about why you decided to have a double mastectomy at age 14.
Inside the lives of transgender
Psychiatrists who caution that children who may be transgender don't always grow up to be transgender adults. There's no easy answer. With science and psychology only starting to explore this complex subject, what's the right way to nurture a transgender child? Let's meet a family living with that very question every day. Vanessa's here with her daughter, Josie. Welcome to the show. Vanessa, your husband, Joseph, is in the military. He's not able to join us today.
Correct.
Early on, you probably had a sense that Josie was different. And when did you recognize that Josie was transgender?
It was during a regular well baby exam. The pediatrician was looking at her. He got really quiet and just sort of watched her for a while. And he brought up a term, gender identity disorder. Mm-hmm. Excuse me, what's that? He said, transgender. I was like, could you spell that for me? I had no idea what he was saying.
That's when you learned about it.
That is.
How are you, Josie?
Good.
She has a lot of spark to her, I gotta say.
She does indeed.
Do you remember when your parents thought you were a boy?
A little bit.
Talk to me about that a little bit. What do you remember?
Like, how did it make you feel when I used to take you and get your hair cut off at the barbershop on base?
It made me very angry.
Mm-hmm. You did not like your haircut. Why not?
Because I'm a girl, not a boy.
Yeah.
How do you do the basic things? I mean, how do you decide how to dress Josie? How do you decide how to talk to people about what's going on?
Right. Yeah. Oh, those are great questions. And they were really big struggles for us. I had no idea. Here I am trying to put her into, the little G.I. Joe outfits to go to school like all the other little boys on base. And she was fighting me and crying and having fits and demanding that she'd wear the pink leggings and the denim little skirts that she wanted to wear. When we'd go to the stores, she'd go to that, gravitate towards the girls section, not the little boys section that I wanted to put on her. And here on TIFA, on their website, there are other parents allowing their children to do this, allowing their children to match the outside of their body to be congruent to who they are inside. It was a new concept to me.
Well, thank you very much. Dr. Robert Garofalo is joining us today. He's an expert in this area. He's a pediatrician at Howard Brown Health Center and Children's Memorial Hospital in Chicago. Treats a lot of transgender kids and teens. So this story is not foreign to you. You deal with it in your practice all the time. What I would like to have everyone really understand crisply is the difference between transgender, which I guess the criteria is and the term that was used, and Vanessa used it herself, as gender identity disorder. Just explain that for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's some controversy in the community about whether to use the term disorder, first of all, because I think many people are more comfortable with the term condition because, as Josie put it, this is who she is. You know, she's a girl. You know, so the criteria become really important in terms of just making sure that, you know, there is some discordance or discomfort with the gender that she was assigned at birth. That's probably the most important thing.
So just so I'm clear on this, and I think it'll help the audience as well. So it's not so much who you like, it's who you think you are.
Right. You know, sexual orientation is, like you said, you know, who you're attracted to, whereas gender identity disorder is who these people are.
And the second criteria is you don't like your gender, you don't like your genitalia, you don't like the clothes, you don't like doing the things that you normally would want to do if you were that gender.
Yeah, you know, and it can be pretty extreme. I've had a patient present who has sort of self-injured, you know, has cut their penis because they've been so uncomfortable with the anatomy that they were born with.
And the third criteria is the duration of the transgender feelings. And how do you know for sure that Josie's not just going through a phase?
Once we allowed her to express herself authentically, once we allowed her to live in her normal role without trying to force her into a mold that didn't fit her, then she just blossomed. You know, she took 17 doses of medication a day, 14 different medications to try and get her to fit into this mold for depression, anxiety, ADHD. She was, you know, Tourette's went in there at the end, just all kinds of things, just to try and get her to fit into this. And, you know, all of those medications went away, every single one.
You know, I'm not an expert on this, right? And obviously it's a hot topic. You look at the social pressures of whenever we grew up. I remember everyone struggled with their identity. I grew up in a household with 5 sisters and an older brother. My older brother moved out right away once he reached the age, vacated. I remember, you know, me and my sisters, I always laugh and say, I'm very much in tune with the feminine side of me because I grew up with 5 sisters. I get that. I understand it. They wanted another little sister. Like there's pictures that were around at one point where they would dress me up as a girl, like growing up. And these are things that we deal with growing up. And, you know, I'm not sure, I'm not an expert to say whether this is a mental aspect or what's happening. But when you look at the impacts of what is happening now, especially in terms of the social pressure as it relates to social media, you know, back in the day when I was growing up in school, you wanted to look different. If you wanted to be different than everyone else, you would do things. You would dress differently. Maybe wear an earring, grow your hair out. You know, you struggled with those things as a social, you know, impact because you wanted to be different than everyone else and you wanted to stand out. You know, I have 2 sons and both of them are opposite spectrums. One son could care less about his clothes and what he wears. He doesn't care. And the other son is completely different. He's like, I want to go shopping. I want to go do all those things and whatever. But it doesn't lead me to believe anything different. It's just that's just who he is as a person and differently. But, you know, biologically, how that impacts things, you know, towards the long term is that, you know, this situation and advocating for this, where we just allow kids at young age to do this without understanding potentially the ramifications of what that potentially could be, you know, long term. And there's very good guests. I'm trying to book one right now. She's written a book about this and some of the alarm bells that have been going off for quite a while in regards to this, you know, free will to instantly, you know, either medicate or allow these things versus trying to understand things. But again, you know, this is the pushback of why that a lot of people and concerning, you know, that, you know, why is he, you know, endorsing Dr. Oz, you know, through this when he's getting major pushback from his base. This is time and time again of a multitude of bad decisions. Hobo Sermons has joined the live stream. I'm going to be bringing him on in just a moment to share his thoughts, his perspectives. But this isn't isolated. This isn't isolated in regards to the decisions, the poor decisions time and time again that this one person has made that has led us to, and I believe if you look at go back to The Economist, I can't remember what issue it was, and Trump was there and the Trump card and bring him in. And I specifically knew back then and had a feeling, I'm like, well, why are they doing this? How does this make sense that they're putting him up on this plateau and they're doing these things? Is because I think that they understood the power that Trump had to influence people, the power that he had to break things down to a simple perspective of lock her up, to fake news, fake media, that he would instantly grab a good portion of society who would be willing to follow him. Even though throughout his career, Trump, he gave to the conservative and the Republican base throughout his timeline. And would Trump be leveraged by the globalists to usher in what things that they would be doing? And would he fall victim to that and the people who adamantly supported Trump through that? And again, getting back to the signs of why this took place, I'm gonna go into a few other topics that were alarm bells to me, some things that people kind of ignored. But I thought I would give Hobo Sermons an opportunity to jump in and to share his thoughts on it. Raven 6 just posted on here, I wanted to be a fighter pilot, but I grew too tall, still becoming a pilot. It's not just a fighter pilot. Right on. So let's bring Hobo Sermons in the house. Hobo Sermons, how the heck are you, brother?
What's up, CJ? Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you perfect.
Okay, cool. Because good. I'm on my mobile phone and got a headset on that I never use. So
that's okay.
I don't know if it's working or not.
But
I don't know a lot about Trump. You love what? My hair? It's late at night, bro.
I love your live streams. I love your live streams, your music. If you have not done so, check out Hobo's YouTube channel. Thursday Originals are my favorite with his music.
Thank you very much.
Very talented.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome, Hobo. Go for it.
Thank you very much. Shout out to everybody in the chat that actually comes and supports me. I owe a lot to UNV. A lot of the things that I'm getting going on my own channel is because of how awesome Rogue News is and how great the people are that support your channel and everything that UNV do. That we all got sort of similar mindsets and similar interests, so it just kind of translated really well, and I'm very grateful about that. I don't know a lot about like what Trump did wrong or didn't do wrong or what he lied about and stuff like that, but about the trans stuff, as many of you know, I live in Thailand, and there are a lot of transsexuals here. We just call them ladyboys or tomboys. And usually only the lady boys are the only ones that augment their body. And very few of them actually ever get like their junk removed. They'll get breast implants, collagen injections, Botox, stuff like that. They'll take hormones, but very rarely will they do any sex reassignment surgery. And I think a lot of hospitals and doctors here, even though it's so prevalent, they're just like, no, they just won't even do it. If somebody comes in like, oh, I want you to hack off my weenie because I want to be a girl, the doctors are like, dude, our insurance isn't covering that. Your insurance doesn't cover that. It's very different here because it's not an issue, because no one's forcing it on the kids. When they're kids, everyone just kind of thinks of them as like asexual. Kids are asexual. They're clearly a biological boy and they're a biological girl, but no one thinks about that. No one thinks about, oh, you're in the wrong body when you're 5 or 6. That's not prevalent. Even though there's tons of like transsexuals in Southeast Asia, and they're well accepted. They work everywhere. And one of the funniest things is one time when I went home, I had my parents' neighbor was asking my wife about the transsexual thing, because it was like when the bathroom thing was going on. And they're like, well, what do you do when a transsexual woman comes into the women's bathroom? And my wife goes, well, if they look like a woman, they can just come in. The point is, if it's like it's ma'am, they're not going to let that in the bathroom. and most parents keep their kids away from adult transsexuals. They, And they'll always just say, if kids ask about, mommy, why is that man dressed like a woman? The parents will say, oh, they have something wrong in their head. And that's clearly accepted. And that's not considered an insult or diminishing their whatever. It's a well different world, because I think it's been here long enough. I don't imagine what it was like when it first started. But I think because this is happening now in the US, where it's like everybody has to have a thing, it's gotten just so much crazier. Because there's no, like, if you're a boy and you want to be a girl in Thailand, when you're coming up through high school, you're gonna get bullied. You're gonna get picked on. You're gonna get groped. You're gonna be called all kinds of names in the book, because they want to test you. They want to see, like, oh, is this just a phase, or are you really serious about this? So a lot of parents just let the kids do it to the other kids. And if they get through high school and they're like, yeah, no, I still believe I want to be a woman, then they're like, all right, fine. But you can't change it on your driver's license. You don't get to, like, pick a new gender. You get to act like a woman, but you're still a biological man. And I think that understanding has allowed it to be more, like, acceptable when we don't have, there's never been an issue with transsexual bathrooms in Thailand that I can remember. There's not trannies just getting randomly beat up all over the place. They're, you know, to me personally, ladyboys are some of the scariest people in Thailand, because they're dudes on women's hormones, so you don't know how they're going to react half the time to anything. You know, they might just fly off the handle, and then you're getting smacked and stabbed by a fucking, a 5'8" dude who's, 165 pounds cut. You're like, oh shit, But it's just a weird thing, like seeing that Dr. Oz stuff, to me, and for anybody here, and I think in other parts of Southeast Asia as well. I know the Philippines has a lot of ladyboys. I know it's kind of popular in Korea, but I think it's just popular because it's like, oh, look at me. Like, Koreans are all like, yeah, I want to be on TikTok or something like that. But they just leave them alone. You're like, oh, it's a ladyboy at selling you stuff at 7-Eleven. Right? You're on a bus, like a bus traveling to the city. There's somebody like handing out moist towelettes, and it's a ladyboy, and they don't bother with anything. They don't complain about anything, because it's not this new phenomena, and it's not being pushed lower and lower onto the lower ages. Like the adults and everybody kind of step back and say, just let them figure it out, especially in high school, and they'll figure it out. And I think that'd probably be a lot better approach for most Americans, to be like, rather than just pushing this, because you're going to get horrible stuff happening if you keep pushing it, being like, no, you have to accept that my 3-year-old's a girl. Like, no one in their right mind accepts that anywhere. Not here, nowhere. It's just unacceptable. And to think that it could be or should be I have no idea how that came about.
Yeah. Yep. Very well said, Hobo. I completely agree. And I want to make sure you said something that was very important, is that, like, let people be. And I have no problem with that. And many people say, I've got friends that are gay. One of my best friends growing up is gay, and let people be who they want to be. I have no problem with that. But hence lies the problem is when you begin the process of, and I don't want to call it necessarily indoctrination. I think it's more of a, building this over the top type of diverse type of perspective that we perceive that, like, hey, we are all so diverse and everything. So let's begin the process of people need to explore who they are without allowing people to go through the cycle of maturing. And when you begin that at childhood, when people are still trying to figure that out, and they're trying to navigate who they are as an individual, and then you start feeding them these things, it gets very convoluted. It gets very complicated, and I said this, I said this a couple of years ago. And the equivalent of this too is when they started tearing down some of the statues, right? General Lee and these things, like, we're going to tear these things down, that they're wrong. And then eventually it kind of evolved into the attack against masculinity, where they said, hey, you know what? We're going against masculinity. It's not right for you to be a male, and, for you to have this type of strong persona. And I said, just wait. I said, masculinity is now, in a few years, they'll start going after feminism. They'll start going after, females. And that's exactly, what's happened. And there's a war on both. And the war is that when you start allowing the perfect example is the transgender athlete who competed primarily his entire life as a male athlete. And then you say, hey, we want to do the right thing because, we want to be about equality and diversity. So we're going to let this person compete into female sports. And you saw the pushback that happened from it. And I think Joe Rogan was right. I think that's where the line in the sand was broken, that females finally woke up and said, hey, you know what? We have to defend being a female as much as we have to defend being a male. That doesn't mean that those people who are potentially transgender, if they deem themselves, doesn't mean they're anything less. It just means that there's certain rules that need to be written in on how we navigate through this properly, instead of trying to build this culture and get people embedded into this idea that the minority has to become the majority. And this is how you need to think about things as we evolve through life. I guarantee you, Hobo, that like right now, and you see many people that are doing this because I don't want to say it's hip. I don't want to say it's trendy. I believe these parents really care about their kid, and they legitimately could think that they're doing the right thing for their kids. Just, I'm not a doctor, and I want you to raise your child you want. Just think of the long-term impacts, and is this a healthy thing? And there'll be videos out there. I've seen them before. Kids that of transgender that became a male or became female, and then 10 years later they're like, I wish I would have never done this and all that. That mental health thing is very real, and it exists. However, we need to leave that up to the individual and the parents to navigate through this versus trying to indoctrinate people at a young age and make this as part of the American culture of who we are.
Yeah, those are all really good points too. I mean, it is, like I said, like what I've noticed here, like I've been out here for a while, and I used to do teaching as well, even in high school, and you'd see like the gay boys that would start wearing shorter shorts and like doing their little hair up, and like they'll start wearing makeup, and the girl, like everybody, like they'd get teased. They would get teased by everyone, right? It was sort of like, I think that like probably one of the biggest things that contributed to the rise, whatever this rise is, and I don't know what it is in the States, is like the anti-bullying thing that went too far. It's like it's not always bullying what's happening with kids. It's proving ground for kids, like that they can find their identity. Like, oh, I don't have my identity. And it's like, yeah, because you're never challenged on it by anyone. No one's allowed to challenge you on your identity. So you're never going to be able to like back it up and be like, yeah, this is how I really feel. And this is why I feel that way, because they got rid of all of that, like any kind of, identity challenges, from lack of a better word, bullies and teasing. Like, oh no, like that's like, I grew up in a time, I'm sure you did, like the shit that happened to you in school, that helped make you who you were or who you are. So to take that away and to say that like, oh, you can't, like, oh no, you bullied a trans kid, that's transphobia. Like, no, that's not. That's part of life that somehow people have like, oh no, you can't do that anymore. Like, there's no value in that. Like, there is. I'm pretty sure like Bill Burr actually made a joke about this years ago. Like, they need to bring back bullying to get these kids to be more masculine.
Well,
like,
I mean,
because it's gone now. Like, you're here at this point, and you're like, what the?
Yeah, well, it is nuts. The failed attempt the failed attempt to understand or to try to, that we all succeed, or we all succeed at the same pace, and there's no struggle, there's no pain, there's no, we can't allow this to happen. And I don't think it's over parenting or anything. I think it's just, people trying to create this false utopia of that world that doesn't exist with hateful words. And I agree with you. Growing up as a kid, I've shared this many times that I grew up in a very rural, small community where I think my parents that moved into the community, like we were like less than that. Like we were the only, probably one of two any Hispanic families at all in the area. I dealt with it a little bit. I was an athlete, so therefore I think I was socially a little bit more accepted. One of my sisters, who's no longer with us, dealt with it a lot more, where she was, a lot of racial things and everything else like that. Me growing up in regards to some of those challenges, and I was guilty of it as well. Like I have an Asian friend that we'd harass each other and call each other different names, but that's just part of growing up. That's part of the struggles that made us who we are as individuals and people. And when you try to eliminate all those struggles and you say, you know what, everyone has to succeed, everyone gets an A, everyone is a success. That's not reality. That's not how life is. But I feel that there's people who feel that way, that want to create that for the American culture. I just, they want to create this false reality that truly doesn't exist.
No, indeed. And I don't know what the idea is behind that or why, but it is just.
I think it is. I think because they grew up the nerd. I think they grew up the person that was challenging. They're like, I don't want my kid to go through this. I don't want my kid to have that type of hurt. I don't want my kid to do that. And from a parent, I get that. Like, it breaks my heart when things happen to my boys and when things happen, everything like that. But I'm like, son, like, listen, the long term, this is painful, but you're going to be better because of it. It's going to suck. It really is, but you will do better. I'm not gonna let them live in a bubble of this world that's going to protect them from every harm and allow them to make decisions and rightfully so if there's consequences in regards to their decisions. Like, one of my sons came home from an overnight with friends with this ankle that was like swollen up like a baseball, and it was like terrible. Like I was like, oh shit, you jacked it up. I'm like, tell me what you did. What happened? Oh, I went to go jump, and when I jumped, it gave way. I'm like, this is an impact type, thing. I'm like, okay, so one, you're bullshitting me, but you
jumped off the roof.
You jumped off a roof or top of a garage. You made a bad decision, and now you have to live with it. It's going to be painful for you, and you go through it. So, and again, I don't want to even begin to pretend that I have the solutions, the answers, and Hobo, you're the same way. I think we don't have all those. But I think it falls back to the individual and the individual allowing to make decisions for them, for their family, for themselves as it relates to their individuals. But collectively, we cannot state that our children belong to the community. Our kids do not belong to the community. They belong to us as parents until they're old enough. We shape, we mold. Once they become an adult, they move into those things, so be it. But my kids do not belong to the community at all.
Yeah, I totally get that. I agree with that too. One thing that I was thinking about though was the doctor that like diagnosed that little girl on, what was it, Dr. Oz? And it was like, oh, she had like anxiety and ADD and depression. And it's like, if a 4-year-old or a 5-year-old has those things, it's probably not like, oh, they're in the wrong body. Like, there's so many other things that are more than likely going on that are causing those things. Diet, right? Like you said, the community around them could be pressuring them. They could be like their teachers, like whispering in their ear. Like, there's no exploration of it, like on that doctor's point. Like, oh, and we just started giving them like hormones, and then all of a sudden he's better. And it's like, well, I don't believe you because you probably gave him some other stuff too. But you basically, like, we already know so many things about SSRIs and what they can do to people, like full-grown adults, what they can do to the minds of full-grown adults. And here it is. It's like, oh, well, let's just give like hormones to, babies because they said something once. Like, I think the real fight is actually going to end up being against like parents got to come together on some things and realize that the biggest danger is like these doctors that are just like, yeah, okay, like no, like do some diagnosis, run some real tests here. And like, why, like, where do you think where in your schooling did they teach you that like the best thing to give a 4-year-old is a bunch of like hormones and the serotonin blockers, or
when they're still maturing, when their bodies are still developing, right?
That's a way bigger danger, I think, than like, oh, I'm like, that's far more dangerous to the kid than being like, oh, I'm a boy, I'm a girl in a boy's body. Like, just thinking that isn't going to have like major health consequences. nearly as much as the shit that this doctor's pumping into this kid at the age of 5.
Yep.
Like that's way more insane in my mind. Like, well, why is this kid depressed? Why does this kid have ADD? Why does this kid have anxiety? Oh, because he's a girl in a boy's body. Like, nah. I've never been to med school, but I ain't that dumb.
Yeah. Hobo, listen, I really appreciate you jumping on. I'm going to be wrapping up this stream. Love you, brother.
Sure
Keep
thing,
up
man.
with the great work with what you're doing.
Love you too. Thank you very much.
All right, be safe. Take care.
Appreciate it, Okuko. Love you. Bye.
Absolutely. So, friends, getting back to it. So, really appreciate Hobo jumping in. Make sure you check out his YouTube channel. Very talented musician. Truly enjoy his work, especially his original Thursdays. And we're going to be working on doing some fun things for our community as well. But getting back to the whole idea of why we started this was, again, because a lot of people were flipping out that Trump endorsed Dr. Oz. But what I want people to understand is that, like, this thing happening is not isolated. Like, in terms of the decisions that Trump has made, it's a multitude of poor and bad decisions that Trump has made throughout his previous candidacy that he had. Like I drew up red flags of this, like, and many people just ignored it. They tried to excuse everything. But let's go back to 2019. Let's go back to 2019, which is crazy because if you think back to 2019, it was pre-COVID, the need to manufacture the jab things, right? So what did Trump do back in 2019? Trump signed an executive order modernizing influenza vaccines in the United States to promote national security and public health. Why did he do this? What did he know back then? And why did he do this? Why? And what was the result of this? So under this authority, under him basically achieving this, there were several things that made the current manufacturing of the current things that we're going through right now that streamlined the process of how this happened. What this did in regards to allowing certain organizations, whether it was the Department of Defense, the Department of Justice, to work through and be part of this manufacturing procurement, it streamlined the process is what it did. It streamlined the process of allowing, some of these vaccines to be manufacturing, partnering with NIH, the Department of Defense. It kind of streamlined the process of these manufacturing and the cooperation between government, Department of Defense, and hence why we were able to literally arrive at Operation Warp Speed. And what are we living through today? And to this day, Trump hails the COVID-19 vaccine as, quote unquote, one of the greatest achievements of mankind. Not understanding this guy is an egomaniac. And I'm not telling you what to do, but if you want to support this guy, go right ahead. He's a false prophet. He's a fake. He's a megalomaniac. All he cares about is himself and his family. Stop. I'm sorry to go off on this, but when I see people who continue, so there's mistake one, okay, that I pointed out, everyone to excuse us off. But you see the many conversations that he had, that it's, again, getting back to his greatest result ever. And let's let him say what he has to say.
An absolutely incredible job on the coronavirus task force, Mike. Thank you. Stand up, Mike. Great job. We're here to discuss a monumental national achievement. From the instant the coronavirus invaded our shores, we raced into action to develop a safe and effective vaccine at breakneck speed. It would normally take 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, or even more. In order to achieve this goal, we harnessed the full power of government.
What about the safety, Trump? What about the safety, you ass clown? You dumbass. I don't understand. Like, if you still support this person, do you have an IQ? Do you have a brain? I'm sorry. I'm so over the stupidity of politics and Trump is a direct reflection upon that. I mean, it just amazes me that there's still people out there that would be willing to go Dumb and Dumber. Trump 1.0 was dumb, and Trump 2.0 would be dumber. It just makes absolutely no sense. I'm going to fast forward this because I need to jump off here shortly. Got a phone conference I need to jump on, but let's not forget. So again, Operation Warp Speed, his greatest thing that he gave to humanity, and he delivered this. He ushered this in, and we're dealing with the ramifications. Let's not also forget, who did Trump name as his top ambassador, as national security advisor? Who was that? John Bolton. John Bolton, he ushered in and brought in as the national security advisor. Who in their right mind would have given John Bolton a position in their administration? Someone help me explain. I publicly open a challenge to any Trump supporter, anyone, I don't care who it is, to come on our platform and let's openly debate this. Let's debate, Trump, his decisions on not only his revolving door of people in his administration, which is really the sign of a poor leader. Like, the sign of a poor leader is the revolving door of management. It really is, because it reflects upon not only your decision to appoint people in those decisions, but your ability to mentor them, your ability to influence them into doing, certain decisions. And even though Trump effectively said he was going to DC to destroy the swamp, he brought the swamp right into his administration. He did it time and time again, especially with John Bolton, right? I mean, that's just insane. Let's not also forget, Trump, after he kicked out, let's trust Sessions. Let's bring in William Barr as his next attorney general, because William Barr did such a great job of covering up the fraud of the Bush administration, of getting all that hidden, and even dating back to Reagan, I believe. Let's bring in the same guy, because we need him to do so. Again, more of the same. I'm not going to continue this. I don't, I'm not going to tell you, people that are listening in this stream what to think and what to believe. But if you're struggling and you're still stuck in this belief system in regards to not only the Democratic and Republican parties, but also to Trumpism, that changing the guard. But what we need to do is completely disrupt the political establishment in our country through peaceful means. And that's not going to happen unless some people come to the realization of where I've arrived. And this is coming from someone who voted for Bill Clinton. This is coming from someone who voted for George W. Bush. This is coming from someone who voted for John McCain. This is coming someone who voted for Donald J. Trump. I was stuck in that system for way too long, and I probably should have known better. But I wanted to believe in the voting process. I wanted to believe in our republic, that our democracy was about voting, about decisions. But the reality slapped me in the face. It's just one of those unfortunate things. But I know and I understand that it's hard to change people's minds, and I don't expect to do that in the form of a podcast. I don't think a podcast is going to change a whole lot of people's minds. This is more me just kind of sounding off in regards to how things happen, how things operate, the dysfunctional process. I just want at some point that we come to the realization, the resolution, that we must begin the opportunity of changing things in our country for Americans, not for the elitist class, the top 1%, not for the corporatization of America, not for the greed and everything that's established in regards to our country, but for the people, because we can do better. We can do much better than this that we're doing. And I'm not going to give up faith in that. I'm going to continue pushing the status quo again, not for me, but for my kids, for their kids in the future, and the livelihoods and the work that we're doing today that I equated to is kind of the equivalent of the people originating and meeting in Boston and planning certain things for our country. Inevitably we will have to become covert. I'm going to be discussing this with V at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Rogue News. Sharing some thought processes, because when I was on vacation, I had a lot of time to think. I drove down to Florida and drove back. I wasn't about to jump on a plane, not with the chaos in the airline. So I had a lot of windshield time to do some self-assessing, to think about our country, to think about my kids, their future, understanding that I'm 51 years of age, that my life here on this planet I'm past the expiration date, half the expiration date, moving closer. So I have a short window of things that I want to do, that I want to do to try to help. So I appreciate everyone tuning in, listening to this live stream today. Again, this is my YouTube channel, CJOMC, wanting to kind of disrupt some of the, get more into solutions-based content, open discussions, reactions, discussions, interviews. Those of you who know me can follow my work over at roguenews.com with V, the Guerrilla Economist. He's like a brother to me. Also over on the Gadfly, which is with his London Paul of the Sears Report, and Ken Shortkin Jr. It's an honor. It's truly an honor to work with such talented individuals, and they have influenced me, quite a bit into where I have arrived today. So I want to thank you for the love, the support. God bless all of you, and we will be back at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time with V, the Guerrilla Economist. Be safe. Take care.